The orbital outpost creaked like an old ship frozen in space. Panels flickered, vents hissed, and through the panoramic window, Earth hung below, a blue marble wrapped in storm bands. Mara Devereux adjusted her helmet strap and muttered under her breath, still standing, somehow. Her voice, sharp with a Montreal edge, echoed in the empty docking bay. The inspection crew from the Galactic Alliance was already late, and she didn't trust the kind of species that could travel across galaxies, yet couldn't keep an appointment. When their shuttle finally arrived, the hull shimmered with polished alloy, its engines humming in a tone so smooth it made the human station look like scrap. 6 alien soldiers marched out in perfect formation, armor gleaming like obsidian. Their leader, Captain Threx, towered over them, a being of silver carapace, feline posture, and gold eyes that held amusement rather than respect. Mara wiped her hands on a grease-stained cloth, her tool belt clinking with wrenches and plasma cutters. Chief Engineer Devereux, the translator drone chirped. "We are here to assess your facilities." Mara forced a smile. "Hope you brought hand sanitizer. We're a bit more rustic up here." The soldiers didn't laugh. One of them sniffed the air, mandibles twitching. "Primitive scent. Iron and carbon." "That sweat," Mara said, "means the machinery works." Threx's grin widened, revealing metallic fangs. "Charming. You humans still rely on muscle to fix your machines." "Fascinating." He paced slowly, claws tapping the deck plates. "The Council speaks of integrating your species, but integration implies value. I see only fragility." Mara's jaw tightened. She gestured to the main reactor column. "This fragility keeps your orbit stable. You wouldn't want to test gravity without us." He chuckled. "Such boldness. Do you all have that tone, or are you the exceptional monkey?" Her hand twitched near the plasma cutter, but she steadied herself. "Exceptional, sure. The others are busy keeping us alive while you're busy admiring yourselves." The inspection began. The alien stalked through corridors, scanning everything, muttering about inefficiency and crude design. They treated her work like a relic from a Stone Age. Each remark chipped away at her restraint. She'd rebuilt this outpost after 3 micrometeor strikes, patched its reactors with salvaged solar coils, and slept beside humming coolant pipes because the AI core overheated at night. Yet every weld and repair that had kept her crew breathing was now a joke to these strangers in polished armor. When the reactor alarms began to shriek, the aliens froze. Mara sprinted past them to the control console, fingers flying over manual overrides. The coolant flow was dropping fast. If it reached 0, the reactor would blow half the station into orbit. "Coolant leak in Sector 5, she barked. "Seal those bulkheads." Threx tilted his head. "Should we run?" "Not unless you want to meet your gods early," she snapped. The hiss of steam filled the air as she jammed a pressure stabilizer into place and welded a bypass line by hand. The temperature gauge steadied at the last second. When the danger passed, the aliens looked at her in something resembling astonishment. Mara leaned against the console, breathing hard. That's how fragile humans handle things. Threx stepped forward, examining the scorch panel. "Impressive. You adapt quickly. But tell me, do you ever tire of patching holes in broken dreams?" "Only when the guests make them worse," she said. He smiled again, and this time it carried cruelty. A clever monkey with a wrench. "I'll remember that." He turned away, signaling his team. Within minutes, they were gone, their shuttle vanishing into the dark. Silence returned to the outpost, heavy and accusing. Mara replayed his words in her head, the insult burrowing deep. She had learned to live with condescension, from bureaucrats, from investors, even from her own commanders, but something about that alien laughter dug under her skin. It wasn't just mockery. It was dismissal, the kind that said humans would always be small, unworthy of the stars. Hours later, while recalibrating the damaged coolant system, Mara noticed a flicker on the diagnostic screen. A faint code pattern, unfamiliar. She traced it, brow furrowing. The signature was Varkari, Threx's species. The inspection hadn't only been insulting. It had been invasive. The aliens had left a viral imprint inside the reactor AI, a hidden sequence that rerouted energy surges toward the human control grid. If it had activated mid-cycle, it could have killed everyone aboard. Mara called command immediately. The response came through static. "Do not escalate, Chief. We can't afford diplomatic friction." She laughed bitterly. "They sabotaged us. Then fix it quietly. That's an order." She ended the call before she said something career-ending. "Fix it quietly," as if sabotage was just another leak to weld shut, as if survival depended on staying polite while others spat in your face. She stared out the viewport again, at Earth glimmering beneath the clouds, and felt something old and sharp rise in her chest. A cold, steady anger that had nothing to do with pride and everything to do with justice. She worked for the next 4 hours without speaking, deleting the virus line by line. Her hands were steady, her mind clear. When she finished, she stood in the dim light of the control bay, surrounded by the quiet hum of machines she trusted more than people. The station's systems were stable again, but she wasn't. In the locker room, she found her old Ranger armor, scuffed, dented, still marked with a faded maple leaf on the shoulder. It had been years since she'd worn it. She brushed her fingers over the emblem and felt the weight of 1,000 small humiliations of being laughed at by those who'd never known cold or fear or the ache of hard labor. She began assembling her tools into a compact field kit: plasma cutter, fusion spanner, magnetic tether. The station AI chirped softly from the intercom. "Chief Devereux, your presence is required in engineering." "Not anymore," she said quietly. She sealed her helmet, slung the kit across her back, and keyed the launch bay sequence. The shuttle doors opened to the void, revealing a field of distant stars and the faint trail of the Varkari ship. For a moment she hesitated, aware of the absurdity of what she was about to do. She was one woman, one mechanic, in a galaxy that didn't care if humanity lived or died. But then she remembered Threx's voice, smug, amused, calling her a monkey. "Let's see how clever the monkey really is," she whispered. The shuttle engines ignited. The outpost shrank behind her, and Earth became a pale memory. Ahead lay darkness, a trail of arrogance waiting to be hunted. Mara smiled beneath her visor. The game had begun. The shuttle rattled through the emptiness, its patched hull humming with tension. Mara had stripped every unnecessary panel, replaced its guidance core with the station's backup AI, and rewired the engine coils until they glowed blue-white. She moved through the cramped cabin like a surgeon, checking every gauge, every weld. There was no margin for error. The Varkari Legion's flight paths ran cold across her stolen charts, and Threx's ship was marked among them, gliding in perfect arcs of arrogance through the solar system. She studied those patterns the way a hunter studies footprints. She hadn't slept in 2 days. Coffee rations were gone, replaced by adrenaline and spite. In the dim light, she practiced assembling her railgun, the weapon built from scavenged station coils and a mining capacitor. It wasn't elegant, but neither was she. "Function over form," she muttered, sliding a conductive bolt into place. The weapon whined with power, steady and lethal. She named it Temperance because she was trying, against instinct, to stay controlled. Her first target was a scout vessel that patrolled near the asteroid belt. The ship's signal was faint, predictable. Mara waited in silence. Engines powered down, her shuttle camouflaged among frozen debris. The cold crept through her suit, but she didn't mind. Cold kept her awake, reminded her she was still human, flesh, bone, and fury in a universe of machines. When the Varkari ship drifted into range, she whispered to the AI, "Lock trajectory." The railgun fired once. The shot was clean, almost beautiful. A streak of light carved through vacuum, piercing the scout's rear thrusters. The vessel shuddered and spun, engines flaring out. Mara exhaled slowly, then fired again. The second bolt sheared through the comms array. No call for help, just silence and drifting wreckage. Docking was crude and dangerous. The ships weren't compatible, but magnets and determination made do. She forced open the hatch, stepping into the alien corridor with her cutter drawn. The air smelled metallic and sharp, like ozone after a storm. One Varkari soldier staggered into view, clutching his side. He was larger than she remembered, 7 feet of sinew and armor. But the look in his eyes wasn't confidence anymore. It was disbelief. "You," he rasped. "A human." She shot him in the leg, pinning him to the deck. "Where's Threx?" He bared his fangs. "You think you can?" Her plasma cutter flared an inch from his throat. "Where?" He trembled. "Command vessel. Near Europa. You can't reach him." Mara leaned close enough that her reflection shimmered in his visor. "Watch me." She stood, leaving him alive but broken. As she sealed the hatch and drifted away, she transmitted a message on the Varkari emergency band. "Tell your captain the monkey learned to hunt." Hours later, the message echoed through the system. The aliens reacted with disbelief that soured into alarm. Human transmissions were supposed to be primitive, limited to orbital chatter, not found embedded in Varkari channels. Ships changed course. Orders were issued. The Legion began hunting the hunter. Mara smiled grimly at the irony. Let them come. She spent the next week stalking their patrol routes, studying how they flew, how they assumed no one would dare engage them alone. They traveled in predictable formations, trusting their superior tech to compensate for arrogance. She used that predictability against them. When one group followed her decoy beacon near an ice asteroid, she detonated its crust from within, sending shards of frozen rock slicing through their hulls. When another chased her through a debris field, she vented spare oxygen tanks to confuse their heat sensors, then vanished behind a derelict satellite. Her tactics were messy but ingenious, built from the same instinct that had kept her alive in Earth's harsh winters. Use what's available, never fight fair. The news spread quietly among Alliance channels. A rogue human, designation unknown, responsible for 3 destroyed Varkari vessels. Some called it terrorism. Others whispered it was vengeance. Mara didn't care about either label. She wasn't fighting for humanity's pride anymore. She was fighting because someone had to remind the galaxy that humans were not prey. At night, when she drifted in the dark between hunts, she thought about home. Not the planet itself, but small memories. The crunch of snow under boots, the smell of pine, her father's rough hands fixing the family truck. "Don't start fights," he used to say, "but if someone throws the first punch, make sure they don't throw another." She had followed that advice her whole life, and now it guided her through the stars. Her shuttle was battered, its systems pushed past safe limits. Every fight took a toll. The hull bore scars from plasma grazes, and her railgun coil was losing integrity. She knew she couldn't win forever. The Varkari were organizing, coordinating. She intercepted fragments of their comms. Her name, twisted by their accent. Mara Devereux, the Cold Ghost. The title stuck. They said she came from nowhere, struck without warning, and left only silence. Fear was a weapon, and she wielded it with precision. Then one night, her AI intercepted a priority transmission. Threx's voice, smooth and venomous, filled the cabin. "The human pest is amusing, but this game ends soon. I will return to the ape world myself. Their orbital stations will burn, their species will learn humility." Mara froze. The words pulsed in her ears like a drumbeat. Return to Earth. Burn their stations. She thought of the crew she had left behind, the people who still believed they were safe. The anger that had fueled her became something colder, harder, a resolve that stripped away hesitation. She rerouted all remaining power to her engines and set a new course. The coordinates were clear: Threx's flagship near Europa, preparing to make the jump toward Earth's orbit. She would reach him first. Her AI broke the silence. "Warning, probability of success is below 5%. "Good," she said. "Means I'll surprise him." She spent the next hours repairing Temperance one last time, replacing cracked conduits with melted alloy. Her hands shook from exhaustion, but she forced them steady. She wasn't fighting for pride anymore. She was fighting for the right to stand equal in the galaxy that had already decided she was lesser. When the shuttle's engines engaged, the stars stretched into lines of white light. The hull groaned, but she smiled through the turbulence. She had crossed the point of no return, and she didn't care. Somewhere ahead waited the creature who had mocked her species and nearly killed her crew. Somewhere ahead waited justice. As the shuttle broke from the asteroid belt, a final transmission from the Varkari network reached her. It wasn't Threx this time. It was a frightened junior officer, whispering to his superior, "The human's coming." Mara leaned back in her seat, voice calm as steel. "Damn right I am." The stars ahead shimmered like prey eyes in the dark, and she aimed straight for them. The storm of Jupiter loomed like an endless bruise across the void, its swirling clouds devouring lightning and silence alike. Mara's shuttle drifted along the planet's magnetic shadow, her hull coated in frozen debris to mask her heat signature. She stared at the radar feed, a faint golden pulse pulsing at the edge of the display. Threx's flagship. The sight tightened her chest, not with fear, but with anticipation that felt like hunger. Months of pursuit had led here. Every insult, every sleepless hour, every fight had pointed toward this singular moment. Her AI whispered, "Enemy vessel approaching vector range." "I see it," she murmured. The ship was monstrous, twice the size of her entire outpost, its shields radiating in concentric waves of energy. It moved with arrogant grace, confident nothing smaller could harm it. Mara cracked her knuckles. Time to test that theory. She guided the shuttle into the wreck field, a graveyard of Varkari ships she had already dismantled. Their twisted hulls floated in eerie stillness, the remnants of arrogance defeated by ingenuity. From this metal grave, she would strike again. She reactivated the drones she had salvaged from her last encounter, their programming rewritten to mimic Varkari distress calls. Soon, the space around her filled with faint signals of false maydays, cries for help that would lure the predator closer. On the flagship's command deck, Threx's voice echoed over the open channel. Multiple distress pings. "Investigate. If the human is among them, bring me your head." Mara smiled. "Careful what you wish for." As a massive ship entered the wreck field, her shuttle powered down completely. The only sound was her heartbeat, steady and measured. The flagship's scanners swept past, unable to distinguish her from the frozen corpses of its own fleet. When it drifted into the center, she whispered, "Now," and fired the EMP charge she had built from reactor coolant conduits and scavenge capacitors. The blast rippled through the void. No light, only silence followed by chaos. The flagship's shields shimmered once and died. Mara reignited her engines, the shuttle roaring to life. She aimed straight for the flagship's underside and fired the magnetic tether, locking onto a maintenance hatch. Metal groaned under pressure as she breached the hull, stepping through with her cutter blazing. Inside, the corridors pulsed red with emergency lights. The smell of ozone filled her lungs. Varkari soldiers scrambled to intercept her, shouting in their harsh, buzzing language. She moved like a shadow through them, her railgun firing short, precise bursts. One shot to the leg, another to the chest. No wasted energy, no hesitation. Her movements were calm, almost surgical. She wasn't here to destroy an army. She was here for one man. The deeper she went, the hotter the air grew. Steam hissed from ruptured pipes, bathing the hallways in fog. Her armor's sensors flickered from static. Somewhere above, Threx was waiting, confident she would never reach him. That certainty was her advantage. She reached the elevator shaft, jammed the controls with her cutter, and climbed manually. Every movement was deliberate, mechanical, a rhythm forged from years of endurance and defiance. At the top, she found the command deck door sealed. Her AI fed power from the shuttle remotely into her suit systems. The surge burned against her skin, but she used it to overload the lock. The door split open with a sound like thunder. Threx stood at the center of the bridge, his armor shining gold beneath emergency strobes. He turned slowly, expression one of disbelief turned to amusement. "So the ape arrives. I admit, your persistence is entertaining." "Glad to keep you amused," Mara said, stepping forward, weapon raised. He gestured around him. "You've killed Dozens of my soldiers crippled our fleet. And for what? Revenge? Pride? You could have been great among us. She steadied her aim. You call me a clever monkey. I'm just proving you were half right. Threx lunged with inhuman speed, claws raking across her forearm. Sparks flew as his strike tore through the outer layer of her armor. She rolled aside, firing 2 rounds that shattered part of his chest plating but barely slowed him. He advanced again, each step vibrating through the deck. The railgun overheated and died. She tossed it aside, grabbing a steel conduit from the wall. He swung, his claws slicing through the air, but she ducked and rammed the conduit into his side. The metal hissed as it met living alloy. He staggered, snarling, eyes blazing gold. You can't kill what's superior. Superior doesn't need to cheat, she snapped. With one hand, she activated the coolant valve beside them. The chamber filled with white vapor, dense and blinding. Threx roared, thrashing blindly. Mara moved by instinct, slamming the conduit through the cracked seam in his chest armor, driving it deep until it struck the reactor core embedded within him. The sound was like ice fracturing under immense weight. Energy flared. Threx shuddered, his claws scraping weakly against her helmet. Impossible, he rasped. Mara leaned close, voice low and steady. That's what everyone says, until a human proves them wrong. She yanked the conduit free. The energy inside Threx's armor imploded, the blast hurling her backward. When the smoke cleared, only his body remained, still and broken against the shattered command console. Her ears rang, her breath coming shallow and rough. She dragged herself to her feet, staring at the corpse of the creature who had once laughed at her species. Then she looked toward the comm terminal, its emergency beacon still active. She opened a channel to the Galactic Network. Her voice carried no tremor, no triumph, only calm resolve. This is Chief Engineer Mara Devereux. Humanity says hot. The words echoed through the network like a spark in dry tinder. Dozens of channels flared to life, but she didn't wait to hear the responses. She returned to her shuttle, sealed the hatch, and disengaged from the dying flagship as explosions rippled across its hull. The debris scattered in radiant arcs, burning faintly against Jupiter's storms below. Inside the cockpit, she sat in silence, helmet off, watching the wreckage drift. The fatigue settled into her bones like lead. She had won, but victory felt hollow, too quiet, too vast. The galaxy was still out there, and she knew others would come. Yet the message was sent, the myth already forming. The cold ghost, the human who hunted gods. Her AI broke the silence. Mission complete. Shall I plot a return to Earth? Mara shook her head. Not yet. Let them wonder where I'll appear next. She powered down the lights, letting the stars flood through the viewport. Her reflection gazed back at her, a woman worn but unbroken, eyes bright with something fiercer than vengeance. Determination. Hope. Maybe, though she'd never admit it. The shuttle drifted beyond the wreckage, engines silent, vanishing into the long shadow of Jupiter. Somewhere far below, storms raged, endless and magnificent. Mara smiled faintly. The galaxy could mock, threaten, or forget her, but it would never again dismiss humanity. Not after this. In the quiet of space, she whispered to the dark, "Let them come." And with that, she turned her course toward the deeper stars, chasing whatever came next.